Anyone who crosses the Severn Bridge from Bristol will find themselves in Wales. Turning right, they will enter the town of Chepstow, Monmouthshire. At the time of the Norman conquest, there was no sizable settlement here, but over time it grew as a market town and today is home to over 12,000 people. When the Normans conquered the English at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, they set about building castles as fortresses and symbols of their power. The first castle to be built on the English-Welsh border was at Chepstow. William realised the strategic importance of this border area, especially at an important crossing point over the River Wye, and commissioned the building to be started directly in stone, rather than the normal wooden Motte and Bailey construction, favoured for its ease and speed of build. This castle started the building trend of many castles along the border, known as the Welsh Marches. Although the castle was started in 1067, it changed over time as more was added and altered by a variety of builders until its completion in 1690. Today we are going to find out about three of the main constructors between 1067 and 1300. Three lords were responsible for the development and enlargement of the castle: William Fitzosborne in 1067, William Marshal from 1190, and Roger Bigod from 1270.
Born in 1020 in Normandy, his father was a close associate and cousin of William the Conqueror's father, Richard of Normandy, and the two Wills were childhood friends.
He fought for the Conqueror at the Battle of Hastings and was rewarded for his service with a prominent role in the subjugation of South and West England. William Fitzosborne was given the title of Earl of Hereford and tasked with maintaining the kingdom's stability.
During the 1060s, Anglo-Saxon attacks were emerging from Wales, threatening Norman conquests in England. In order to counter this threat and to act as a springboard for attacks into Wales, William Fitzosborne built a series of castles, including the one here.
These fortifications stretched from Wigmore in the north to Chepstow in the south, in present-day Herefordshire, Gloucestershire and South Wales. Construction on these strongholds started in 1067, and some were used for several hundred years before advances in technology rendered them less useful.
When William I left England in 1067 to settle a continental conflict, he left Fitzosborne and Bishop Odo of Bayeux in control of England. In 1071, when the king returned, and with Chepstow still under construction, Fitzosborne left for Flanders, where he died in battle fighting Robert de Frisieux for territory claims. After his death, his son, Roger, took possession of the castle, but unfortunately lost it in 1075 during the rebellion against the king. It passed through possession by the de Clare family, then to the Fitzgilberts, eventually coming to William Marshal.
Marshal was born around 1146 and died in 1219 at the grand old age of 73. He and his sons went a long way to shaping the castle we see today. Marshal lived a fascinating life, and one that is well documented thanks to the efforts of his son William Marshal II, who, upon his father's death, produced a poetic biography entitled L'Histoire de Guillaume le Marchal, documenting his life. In his early years, after his brother John inherited his father's land, Marshal had no political career. He spent his youth on the continent and became a well-renowned tournament champion and soldier. Marshal lived through the reign of 5 kings, the first of whom was Henry the Young King. Following the Young King's death, Marshal went to the Holy Lands to crusade on a promise made to him on his deathbed. He then continued to serve Henry the Old King until his death. He was with Henry II in his final months as he ran from his son Richard of Poitiers. Upon his ascension, Richard, later Coeur de Lion, brought him back into the fold. His possession of Chepstow was confirmed by the new king. At this stage he married Isabel de Clare, giving him claims to land in Leinster and several English properties. Under Richard, his stock in court grew, as did that of his brothers. Following his brother John's death, he consolidated his lands in the Marches. Richard was succeeded by his brother Count John. Marshal clashed with the new King John over his continued possession of Norman lands and the homage he paid to the French King Philip. Due to his disagreements with John, Marshal went into a self-imposed exile in Ireland. After a long 7 years, John recalled Marshal to court requiring his services to fend off the baronial revolt. Following John's death, he was appointed to be Guardian of England, in service to the 9-year-old King Henry III, even fighting in the Battle of Lincoln at the age of 70. Loyalty to the crown and bravery were the two aspects that typified his life.
William Marshal was responsible for the development of the Middle Bailey on the east side of the castle. However, his repairs and extensions didn't stop there. He extended further east, creating the Lower Bailey as well. Marshal Senior was also responsible for the construction of the Upper Bailey and the rectangular tower. It was similar to the Gloriette at Corfe Castle, built by King John. They had been built for his wife, Isabel de Clare. The rectangular and arched windows behind me belonged to the Countess's chamber. The interior was split. The eastern half became a great room and the western half a withdrawing room with a bedchamber above. The masonry of the windows and arches were of the highest quality, finding contemporaries in Winchester Castle and Salisbury Cathedral. Finally, in 1293, the Great Tower was enlarged and the upper story was added and extended along the full length of the building by the younger Marshal brother. William Marshall's sons gave the 150-year-old castle a much-needed renovation. The interior was aged and therefore not up to 13th century standards. Marshall's sons added more to the castle. They built a round barbican solely with eyes on defence. Despite the addition of the barbican, the security of the western flank of the castle still gave cause for concern. Work was undertaken in 1272, which strengthened the barbican with a gatehouse and a portcullis. The portcullis was a pivotal part of medieval castle defence. You'll see above me 3 grooves designed for 3 most likely separate portcullises, making this an incredibly difficult area of the castle to penetrate. This is part of the upper barbican, which is probably one of the hardest parts of the castle to interfere with and to crack open. From above, you've got 3 gaps as well. From that, you can throw tar, rocks, even fire arrows at your attacking forces, hopefully fending them off. The outer wall of Chepstow Castle provides us with another example of perfectly organised castle defence. The ground layout to start with is on a slope, making it very difficult for attacking troops to get to the base of the wall and mount an attack. The tower is shaped perfectly round, meaning any bombardment is either going to ricochet or plummet to the ground rather than shattering the actual tower. Ramparts are another primary method of medieval castle defence. Here you can see we've got a wide angle of view, so any defending member from the ramparts can see any opposing force coming towards for a long while away. In addition to that, they've got the perfect angle for archers to start volleying and start making the opposing force smaller and smaller. These pillars in the centre are designed so that the attacking or invading force, whilst coming up the stairs, cannot deal a significant blow on those who are defending from the stairs. If I show you with this umbrella, a long broad sword is going to be far too huge and far too heavy to try and get a thrust up to a defending member of the castle. The defensive members, however, have got the perfect wide angle of attack to knock back any invading attackers. Solid. Arrow slits, such as this one here, was another typical part of medieval defence. You can see it's designed long but thin. Long so that you have a long view of fire for the archer, but thin so that any opposing fire coming toward the defending archer is not an easy shot to make. It's protection for the archer while a wide angle of attack as well.
Following the death of the Marshall brothers, their lands were divided amongst their sisters, Chepstow passing to the eldest Maud, and on her death to her son, Roger Bigod II, Earl of Norfolk. The Bigods were a medieval Norman family renowned for their great castles in Suffolk. On his death in 1270, his son, another Roger Bigod, inherited the castle. Whereas his father was mainly interested in his East Anglican lands, Roger Bigod III took an active interest in his Marcher lordships.
The next 6 years, 1272 to 78, saw the building of the town wall. Although this period saw the beginning of the final conquest of independent Wales by King Edward I, it also saw a string of severe Welsh revolts, and it would have been prudent to protect the town in this way whilst matters were still unsettled.
Work at the castle began at about 1278 under the new direction of Master Ralph, who was paid a wage of 2 shillings a week as Master Mason.
1278 and 85, a fine new hall range was built along the River Cliff, along the north side of the Lower Bailey.
Roger Bigod and Ralph Gorgon also built the Great Tower at the south-east angle of the Lower Bailey. They remodelled the 11th century Great Tower, extending the Marshall Brothers extra storey at the west end to cover the entire tower, adding corner turrets at the eastern angles and inserting a floor over the hall.
Following in 1285, the Martin's Tower at the southeast corner of the same bailey was a vulnerable part of Chepstow's castle defence. The building of this tower was of tantamount importance when creating a structure of keep-like proportions.
Earl Roger equipped the castle with accommodation worthy of a nobleman of high rank. A new kitchen, service rooms, hall and Earl's private accommodation were added along the riverside of Chepstow Castle, from the outer to middle gate.
Bygod's intensive building works are said to have stimulated the town's economic pulse, and in time the name Chepstow began to distinguish the town from the lordship. In 1298, a military engineer Reginald was brought in to advise on the building of 4 large springalds, or catapults, mounted on 4 of the towers, including the Great Tower. For some reason, these were later neglected, and 3 of them were put into storage, where they soon became useless. Partly because of his lavish building works, Roger Bygod was heavily in debt in his latter years. In 1302, the childless Earl made an agreement with the king that in return for an annuity, his lands and castles would pass to the crown on his death in 1306.
Chepstow Castle is a relic of times gone by. It stands as a reminder of the Norman presence in Wales, and its original unique stone build by William Fitz-Osborne reflects its importance in guarding the River Wye. The castle has undergone several adaptations as years have passed, with the most prominent being under William Marshall, who constructed the main gatehouse and several towers to improve the castle's defence. Other changes were made by Roger Bygod, who converted the fortress into a castle fit for royalty. In the 16th century and onwards, the castle saw fortifications and mild modifications being carried out. The castle faced bombardment during the Civil War, in which it passed hands from royalists to parliamentarians several times. Despite this, the castle remains well preserved, and walking through the grounds allows one to gather the sense of walking through time. The connection to the Norman times is not forgotten today, both through William Fitz-Osborne's building of the Great Tower in Chepstow Castle and St Mary's Church, which lies about 300 metres from the castle. These Norman ties are memorialised in this mural, found on the side of a local supermarket. The castle serves as a unique reminder to the people of Chepstow of their history. It will continue to do so for generations to come.